In this episode, we talk to Kelly Sinclair. She is the owner of KS & Co. and also Entrepreneur School in Canada. You could check out her information at entrepreneurschool.ca. And also she has an online group with KS & Co. In this episode, we are going to talk everything from motherhood, business, relationships, and how you can market with relationships other than paying for ads, and really even better than SEO. So definitely stay tuned for this amazing episode. Welcome to the Photography Business Mastery for Moms podcast. This podcast is designed specifically for moms who are passionate about photography and entrepreneurship. If you're a mom with a photography business, striving to achieve balance between growing your business and spending quality time with your family, you're in the right place. In each episode, we delve into the strategies, tips, and insights tailored to help you thrive in both your professional and personal life. From marketing techniques to time management hacks, we provide tangible information to help you scale your photography business while prioritizing your family. Join us as we explore how to navigate the unique challenges and joys of being a mompreneur in the photography industry. Let's empower each other to achieve success and fulfillment in both our businesses and families. Thank you so much for being here at the Photography Business Mastery for Moms. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, about your family, and tell us all.
Yes. So I'm Kelly Sinclair. I live up in Alberta in Canada, and I am a mom of two girls. My girls are almost 11 and 9, and I can't even believe how fast that has gone by. Yeah.
So fast.
Yes, it is incredible. I started my business actually when they were both under 4 years old after I lost my mom to breast cancer.
Oh,
And I just really got that life wake up call of what are you doing with your time, right? So I was working in my career of public relations and commuting to the city, like on the road for almost 3 hours a day, driving back and forth to my office. Literally could not have enough coffee to not be a zombie. I was just, oh, it's okay. This is like the hard part of being a mom when their kids are little, and this is normal. And it was like, no, this is
yeah.
not normal. And then when my mom passed away, I was reflecting on that, going, okay, this was the time to like exit and to start doing my own thing where I could be in charge of my own time, which I think is so important, and why a lot of us get into business as moms, right? Like now I'm able to walk my kids to school. Today I was at a gymnastics competition on a Thursday morning at 8 a.m.
Right?
Like, these things are what come up, and I'm so grateful every day that I don't have to like be asking someone for permission to be
Right.
able to do these things, so that we can really like create the life that we want for our kids.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I also am a host of a podcast called Entrepreneur School, which is very similar. It's also for moms in business and talking about all the different strategies and tools, both from like the marketing and the business strategies, but also just like, how do you be an entrepreneur? I was like,
Yeah.
why entrepreneur school not exist actually? Because like there's so many pieces to it. There's so much about your mindset and patience and like continuing like testing things and detaching your own personal worth from your business and all of those kinds of things.
And
And
I'm
then
the
my
worst.
specialty, sorry, go ahead.
I'm the worst at detaching myself and my personal worth from my business. It's so bad.
It's yeah, like and I've been I've been in business now for almost 7 years, and it's like a constant reminder of, just your business is the thing that it's an entity, and you just happen to own it and run it and care about it, obviously, but it's not you, and what it's doing is not a reflection of how good you are at what you do.
Oh,
So
that's great you said that, because I also find that I'm in a space of transition. So I have 3 kids and my youngest is only 9 months. So I have 6, 8, and 9 months. And I feel like I always was a mom, obviously, but I feel like once I had that third, it just was like, what am I doing running a full-time business, having help, of course. I have help. I have a VA, I
Yeah.
have an editor, I have people in studio, but it's a lot, especially
Yeah.
when you're trying to do the best thing for your kids. And we do this for our kids. And then we're outsourcing so much for our kids.
Yeah, and like and everyone gets to pick, right? Like how do you like what do you need to fill yourself up in order to be the best version of yourself for your kids? Uh and there's like a spectrum, right? Of how much is that like doing work and how much of that is like finger painting and volunteering in the classroom or whatever else you want to do. Like I do not volunteer in my kids' classroom. I'm like, this is a big no for me. I don't want to do that. But I
But
do want to be able to walk them to school, you
right.
know?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I feel like also in, not to get too controversial, but I feel like with us growing up, it was like go to college, get a job, work full time. There never was anything like, if you want to be a mom, it's okay. It's okay to be a mom. You can rely on a partner. You can still work part time, but you don't have to like fill that or what's the word I'm looking for? Like climb the corporate ladder and wait to still have a family. You can still
Yeah.
do that, but also a family is important too. Like
Oh, yeah.
that's what is fulfilling in the end of life. Nobody's going to say, "Oh, I wish I worked more" when they're on their deathbed, unfortunately. They wish they had more time with their family. And I think that our generation is starting to get to that point where it's like, well, I don't think this full-time 40, 50, 60 hours a week is something that works for a family, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think we are in this like we are the generation that has to change that narrative. And so we are like the and era, right? Like I can this and this and this. Like I can do all these things and I can do it my way. And I was a checkbox girl too. Like I married my high school sweetheart. We got married, we bought a house, we had the dog, we had like the corporate career was all happening, check, check, check. And then that's when my mom died and I was like, what is this and why?
Wow.
And questioning that I think is just it's an important reminder of like what really matters to you and aligning what you're doing with your values.
So good for you to say that. So good for you to say that because I feel like a lot of people also look at what other people are doing on social media. Like I'm guilty of it myself, but I know my values are changing with my business and how I'm running my business. So I'm trying my hardest not to look at social media and other photographers. But do you have any advice for those that are kind of in that point of, well, they're running a full-time business or they want to run a full-time business, but they also want a family too? How do you kind of figure out what is best for your family and values wise as well?
Yeah, no, that's definitely where it starts is identifying like what are your values and what's important to you because whenever you're working outside of that, you're always going to feel in conflict, right? Like so you need to be able to stay in alignment and create a lot of these things like time is one of the biggest ones, right? So when it comes to scheduling your work, that's going to be one of the biggest areas where you have to set the boundaries that you want and especially for the photographers out there who are doing like the in person, like what you do, it requires you to physically be there
Right.
for amounts of time. So,
Right.
what does that look like? When do you want to work? And like some people like to work at night when their kids go to bed. Like you could probably edit photos at 1 in the morning if you wanted to,
Right.
or or weekends because your spouse is home and that works easier and you don't want to work on the weekdays. Like and I think the main thing too is just really owning that it's your own unique situation is for you and you're not going to be able to get that from anybody else.
Right.
I think that one of the reasons too that I even created Entrepreneur School, my show, was because as an entrepreneur was seeking information like insights, tips, strategies. How do we like what is time management when I don't have someone telling me to do all day, what to do all
Right.
day? Like that's crazy. But then I was finding all of these like big name people who had, their best practices. And they're like, this is the morning routine that I do. It's like 20 minutes of movement and 20 minutes of meditation. And I'm like, dude, you don't have kids, do you? Like, not at all, not a chance.
I have said this before on this podcast. I follow men and their self-help and their business strategies and stuff, but I cannot relate with them because they're typically not the default parent. The default parent is the mom, is the one that's picking up and dropping off. It's so hard to listen. Like, I love Gary Vee, but we don't see anything that he has to do with his kids and family. It's such a different perspective than following another mom and learning from other moms.
Oh yeah. And I honestly like it took me a long time to realize that I was different
Yes.
because I almost like I didn't want to be, right?
Right.
Because you don't want to like look at being a parent and being a mom as a setback, because it's
Right.
not just a
Right.
thing that you're navigating alongside other stuff.
Yep.
So it was just like an acceptance, and I was like, wait a minute. Yeah, no, because this advice doesn't work for me.
Right. It's so hard, especially now I'm guilty of it. In the beginning of my business, I didn't have kids yet. So it was like the hustle, hustle, hustle. I worked full time. I had per diem jobs and then I was building my business. But then priorities change when you have kids. So it's so hard to switch right away. So I still was in that hustle, hustle, hustle. But I found a lot of guilt when I was like dropping my first son off at the babysitter just so I could get some work done. How would you help someone who is maybe in that point in their life where they really want to build their business, but they also want to spend time with their family and like quality time with their family? How could you help them with that?
I think it's about actually acknowledging that your timeline's going to be different,
Yeah.
right? Like I have had to tell myself so many times, like, you need to be more patient because your season is longer, because
Yeah.
you're not putting in the same amount of hours, and it's not even all about hours either. Like, there's no guarantee that once you hit 100 hours of whatever, you're going to get, you're going to get to the next level. It's not
Yeah.
even like, it's just an acknowledgement that you're doing things at your own pace, and it's so important to actually recognize and appreciate that the living in the now, like, that's what presence is, right?
Mhm.
Instead of being like, we can be ambitious and set goals and everything. And I've had so many conversations with people on my show too about like that, how you reconcile ambition and presence. Like, how
Mm.
do we strive for more but also be happy with what we have? And
Yeah.
that's a really challenging thing because it's a bit of a conflict, it seems, right? But
Yeah.
it's I choose to walk my kids to school today, and I to every day, and I choose to drive them to all the activities. So therefore I'm living in my values, and this is what happiness is. Because the idea, oh my gosh, I'm gonna forget the terminology, because it's actually like, I read a book, oh, it's a funny word that no one's gonna understand anyways. It's like hedonic. It's called the hedonic treadmill, where
Oh,
it's this concept that you think that when you get somewhere else, you're going to feel differently.
yeah.
Like, when I hit $100,000 year, when I hit like like a fully booked client slate, when I hit whatever your goal is, then I will XYZ. And it's like, no, because you're on a treadmill. And once you get there, you like look forward to the next thing. You're like, cool, now how do I get a $200,000 year?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's just natural
Mhm.
to feel that way. And so that's where we have to like acknowledge that we think like we're searching for the emotion and the feeling of what we think is coming for us when we achieve whatever it is.
Mhm.
And instead, how do we actually just bring more of that into what we're already doing? Like, if
Yeah.
I think I'm going to feel a certain way, like, so for example, I'm taking my family to Disneyland next week.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting.
So excited about it. Like, I'm already like as excited as I know that I will feel when I walk into that park. But it's like, I didn't say like, when this happens, then I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to like, when we get to this certain place in our lives and our income and whatever, then we're going to take the trips. I just, first of all, never have regretted a vacation in my life. So that's,
Absolutely.
it's a no-brainer for me, but to
Yep.
justify. But like, it's like, we got to do this now.
Yeah.
You have to do it now. There's just so many reasons.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness, this is so good. I'm so excited.
Yeah,
Um,
you got me on my leg, like, mom life and business like vibes. I often come on podcasts and I'm talking about like what I actually do, which is I'm a visibility coach, and I talk about like, strategies to grow your business and get and market yourself without relying on social media in particular. But this is a cool conversation too.
Yeah, we're getting there too. Don't you worry. I'm
Excited.
getting into the business questions.
Okay, okay.
This is awesome. So what habits or practices do you attribute to your success in your business?
I think this has been, well, the best one, I mean, we talked about a few different things as far as like some time management and whatnot. Like just identifying what you actually like your own work hours and stuff. And I think that's important, like as a very high level base.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest, practices that I implement that it is truly a habit for me is related to visibility, is about making connections and putting myself out there, because the truth is when you have a business, if you don't talk about it, nobody knows about it. Right? So
Exactly.
it's your actual job to be your own cheerleader and to beat your drum and wave your flag and talk about what you do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you won't have an audience and you won't have clients, and then you won't have a business. So like
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
and so when it comes to visibility, I have been doing what I call going on a visibility tour, where
Mm,
you take intentional actions related to putting yourself out there on a weekly basis. So a few times a week. And I track this. And I've been tracking this since like for like 9 months basically now, since I started doing it. Just to be like, so there's days when you don't feel like showing up, right? There's days when you're like, oh, but my kid's sick or whatever distractions are getting in my way. And on those days, and the whole purpose of this came from last summer, me being like, my kids aren't in camp this year and I don't want to work that much. And I got a paddle board, so I want to go out and play. But I still want to be relevant. I still want to make sure that I have stuff that I'm like creating opportunities for myself, that I'm making connections, and that when September comes, and I'm like, ooh, I better get started on that.
right.
You know?
Right.
So it can really be like 10 minutes a day where you're doing something like I spent 10 minutes that day, like in that one Facebook group where you posted about the opportunity to be on this podcast, and here I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Like it's that kind of thing. Or reaching out to somebody who commented on one of your social media posts and actually like having a conversation. Or
Mm-hmm.
you see like somebody else that was on a podcast, and you're like, oh, I think I would like to be on that podcast. Can I get an introduction? Can I
Very,
ask the person to be like to give me an introduction? Those kinds of things like build up momentum for you around your visibility. So this is always external facing, and it's always reaching out and like connecting and building relationships with somebody else versus like listening to a podcast, which we all love doing. Thank you for being here. We love listening to the podcast, but it's not, we will fill our plates with all of the behind the scenes stuff
mm-hmm.
because that feels more comfortable,
Yeah, absolutely.
right?
That's actually great that you say that, because I find that a lot of people on social media will say, oh, I only post like once a week or twice a week because I don't want to bug people about my stuff. But you're right. If you're not posting constantly, and we'll get into the whole like talking to other people, because that's a big problem in photography businesses. People are so scared to talk, but posting more on social media doesn't mean that one person is going to see every single post and you're not necessarily bugging them, because social media algorithms are constantly changing. So they're probably seeing maybe one post a week, or if they're following stories and stuff, they'll see your stories. But talk about what or how a photographer could reach out to, even just like networking or podcasting. Like, it really seems easy, but what about that introverted person that's like, no, I'm not going to talk to anybody. I'm just going to post.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I want to just address that um strategically social media, like we have this narrative that we just believe that social media is like the only way to be successful, and I just actually call BS on that. That's just not true.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
Because like you said, literally 1 to 4% of the people who see or who follow you will actually see your posts, which is
Mm,
very, very little.
yes.
And of those people, like trying to use social media to get discovered is a very challenging effort.
Hmm.
And there are so much more effective ways to put yourself out there and get seen in order to get clients.
Hmm.
And so like all so if we think about sales, right? Getting a client means somebody trusts you enough to give you money. And
Hmm.
so trust comes from building relationships, right? And so those relationships are either like you and I now have a relationship because we've had this conversation, and we might be able to refer each other business or connect you to opportunities or whatever it is that comes after this.
Hmm.
Um and and so meeting people and connecting with people, whether in a room or through online events or whatnot, all of these are really great actual like tactical ways to do it.
Hmm.
And for photographers, I would say collaborations is actually huge. So
Hmm.
especially when you're an in-person, right? So say you're a wedding photographer, having relationships with wedding venues,
Hmm.
with different wedding service providers, like the place that does the flowers and all of these things, like you can create those relationships because what you really want is referrals to
Absolutely.
your business, right? And so that doesn't come from you posting on social media by yourself, like I'm
Mhm.
standing on stage being like, hello over here.
Yeah.
But it's like about creating that connection. And so, because you need to build your reputation
Yeah. Yeah.
for your craft.
That's so great you say that because the wedding industry is so saturated. Let's just say I got out of the weddings, oh my gosh, 8 years ago, 7, 8 years ago now. And there's so many photographers that go straight for the venue. So maybe looking into like the florist, or now there's content creators that come to weddings, like creating those opportunities doesn't have to be with the big people to start off with. You can start with the little itty bitty people that help in the back end, the
Yeah.
DJ, the
Yes.
florist, the content creators. Like I said, they're becoming so big here in New Jersey and Philadelphia. But sharing photos between each other, sharing stories, sharing their content to your content, like that, the little things are always going to help you move forward with those relationships.
Yeah. Well, and I even mean like, so say you want a relationship with the DJ. Well, why don't you make a combo package? So if they hire that DJ, they get and they want a DJ and a photographer at the same time, you create a package together where you do some kind of income split.
Yeah, that's a great
Getting really
idea. Yeah.
creative with that.
Yeah. So I actually work with maternity and newborn clients mainly, and I have a hair and makeup artist that we share stuff back and forth all the time. We're going to start doing more styled shoots, and I'm going to be doing more
Yeah.
content for them. But
Yeah.
it's also like if I ever need services for myself, I'm booking her. Even though she says don't pay me. Of course I'm paying her. But it's also that relationship we already have, like when she comes in, I'm just like no hair and makeup on a normal day, and we're just talking and all about the kids and everything. It's like that we now have like a friendly relationship outside of business stuff as well.
Yeah.
And I will say, years ago, before I started my business, I was very introverted, and you would never guess that I was introverted because all I can do is talk now. So if you're
See, you can change.
definitely do it, right? You can definitely get to it. It takes time. It takes a lot of putting yourself out there. I mean, I used to go to networking events when I had time before 3 kids. But that's a great place, even if it's in your niche, but you're not like a vendor, let's say. You just go and you're talking to people and you're talking to the other vendors there and you're getting to know those relationships. I feel like after Google and SEO, relationships are so much better and bigger and important than social media. Like if social media wasn't for like the know, like, and trust factor of when the client finds you on Google and then they go to your social media, I would be making relationships all the time.
Well, if I could counter that just a little bit for you.
Sure.
When you think about your marketing, you've got like SEO and Google, yeah, but
Mhm.
that is a long game strategy. Like that
Right.
comes from like multiple clicks and backlinks and, visits to your site and all of that.
Hmm.
Physically going somewhere and meeting someone. So I went and spoke at an event a couple of weeks ago, and there were 50 people in the room. And of those 50 people, like 25% of them, or sorry, 25 of them, so 50% of them came and visited me afterwards. And we had conversations and we connected with each other, and they joined my email list. And now I can continue. I just had a conversation with one of them about joining my program like earlier today.
Yeah.
So that like translates into sales a heck of a lot faster than like
Yeah.
putting so much weight on the bigger digital strategies that, yeah, cool that you can add those. That they have value for sure. I'm not poo-pooing that, but like if what you want is more clients now and more sales now, then how do you meet those people? Like
Yeah.
how do you actually like take away all of the things in between you and them, like Google, like a website, like social media, and actually just be there.
Yeah. Now, when you were speaking, were you doing more like educating a group? Tell me a little bit about that so that because I feel like now being almost 11 years into my business, I feel like now that I'm starting to do the education, which is also showing that I'm an expert in my field for not just photographers, but clients that are finding me and finding on social media or podcasting or whatever it is. They're like, okay, so she's an expert in what she does because she has a podcast, she has a great website, she has all of these interviews, yada, yada, yada. How do you feel about that?
You mean like speaking as a strategy because it propels you as a thought leader?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like speaking to the whole purpose of anything that you do for visibility should be about positioning yourself as the expert in your field, right?
Mhm,
How do
mhm,
you shine the light on what makes you the go-to? Why should they choose me, right?
mm.
That's what you're doing, absolutely. And so, yes, well, I was speaking about this kind of conversation, having a conversation about the mindset shifts that are required to help you get yourself out there. And
Mhm.
of course, in a room of people who are all very nervous about being there, some of them are also speaking, that kind of thing, where it was like, yeah, let's celebrate that you're in a room of opportunities. Let's take advantage of it right now.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's awesome. What advice do you have for someone who's looking to scale their business, but don't want to sacrifice the quality of their business or personal connections with their family?
Yeah.
It's a tough.
Well, yeah, I mean, like sometimes sometimes the idea of scaling your business is overrated.
Mm,
Like, I'm just gonna throw that out there too, but because we sometimes think that it's the thing that we have to do, like,
yeah.
because you have to get to stuff because profitability is a whole different conversation. Like, some people
Oh,
are scaling their business, but they're not changing anything about the profitability of it. But they
yep.
have a team of 5 people that they're paying, and they're way more stressed, and they work way harder, and they still make the same amount of money. Like,
Yeah.
I have seen one of my coach who I work with went from 12 people back down to 1. She went the other way because she was like profit.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So what's important to you, right? Like, of course, you're going to get to a place like where you're maxed out. And if you want more, you have to do something different about the structure
Right.
of your business, either like offer something different,
Hmm.
right? Like, and I'm a big fan of definitely of, especially in like photography or any like personal service world,
Hmm.
doing something that's just that is passive, right? Like something digital that you could add on to that where you're going to be one to many and you're able to make sales. It doesn't involve your time. The trading time for money thing, it gets old for
Yeah.
sure. I
Um,
started my business. That was the model I used too. I was a consultant. I was like, cool, I will work X hours. You will pay me X per hour. That's the only thing I know.
yeah.
And then I'm like, ugh, even just changing that into like a retainer structure made it better.
Yeah.
Like there's different ways that you can just model your actual business that really fits into your desire for like the amount of time that you're working.
Yes. That's so great because in the photography world, there's this saying of if you hit $100,000, you're successful in your business, but that's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
How much are you sacrificing for your family? Is that profit? Or are you only making 20,000 in profit because you have so much expenses? We all know, like you said before, that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. And I think that we have to start like putting actual value, like monetary value on things that aren't just money,
Yeah,
right? Like your time is worth something. And so like how much is it worth to be able to for me to be able to actually spend today like with my daughter at the gymnastics competition versus working with a client for a couple of hours?
absolutely. And also,
It's worth
mom
way more.
guilt gets into there as well. If you're missing out on something, but you're working, then it's like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
that mom guilt, like you should have been with that kid thing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Last question. Looking back on your journey, what do you consider to be the key factors for your success? And what does success mean to you? Success means so different for everybody. So, what are those key factors for your success and what does success mean to you?
Yeah, no, I was gonna immediately turn it into that, like, listen,
Yeah.
success is subjective,
Yeah.
and that's the main thing that to understand. Is it like creating your own definition of success is actually what's gonna keep you from constantly feeling like you're failing, no
Yeah.
matter how much you're actually achieving financially, and I've had a variety of like financial levels in my business over 7 years too, and it's like, well, what I realize is that at this year I've been happier than any other year because I've one taken the pressure off of myself to
Mm.
achieve something on a timeline that I'm making up instead of just like what is actually meant to be,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like releasing a little bit of the control, that's a hard thing to do, especially I don't know if you know Enneagram, but I'm an 8. It's like literally my everything I want to do is control everything.
That's great.
Releasing is challenging for sure. So my definition of success is that I have I'm in charge of my schedule. And that I
Mm.
get to make a choice, that I get to make the choice to say yes or no to things. And I'm
Yeah.
not doing anything out of feeling like I have to because I have to hit a revenue goal or I have to whatever please somebody or I have to be some like I just don't like that feeling like I should or have to.
Yeah.
I want so having the power, it's really that's my definition of success.
I love it. I think a lot of people, not only photographers, but a lot of people in business first start with the success of the money and how much they're making. Once they
Yeah.
hit that six figures, it's like, okay, but how did I do that? And it was a lot of work. It was a lot of my time. And then maybe it wasn't worth all of that. And trying to mix things up. So I'm glad that you said it wasn't about the figures and it's about subjective. What is best for you and your family at that time? I also talk a lot about seasons of life. Like right now, I'm in a season where my youngest is so little, I can't spend that much time in my business. But 2 years from now, he's going to be a little bit more self sufficient. So if I need to do something on the computer or on the phone and he's playing and having fun, like it'll be okay. But right now, he is attached to me. So that is not the
Yeah,
season to be on my phone
exactly.
and on the computer while he's on top.
Yeah. I love that acknowledgement of seasons of life and that they're going to be they're different like and that kind of goes back to the earlier conversation we were having about like your timeline and your season of growth like I'm up here in Canada right now. I've got barely some tulips coming up and it snowed the last 2 days. So
Oh,
like you're down in this like in the sun and everything is blooming all the time. Like things are blooming at different times. Your garden is going to bloom at different times. And it literally is a garden, right? Like that analogy stands really well. Like you're planting something and it has to get watered and it grow and then it will go dormant for a while and then it will come back and then you'll have to cut it and then it'll grow again, right? And so just being like allowing it to all come at the times that it's coming is again, it sounds like easier said than done because it definitely is easier said than done. And I'm reminding myself as well all the time. I haven't got it all figured
all
out.
the time. Absolutely. All the time. No, that was such a great analogy. Thank you so much. That was the perfect finish to our podcast. But tell us all again your business, what you do, and where people can find you.
Yeah, so absolutely love if you come over and follow Entrepreneur School, whatever platform you like to listen to podcasts. You can find me on Instagram at ksco_Kelly, and my business is called KS and Co.
This episode is sponsored by Flowdesk. Flowdesk is the most modern, beautifully branded newsletter system for photographers. Use our affiliate link below for a free trial and 50% off your first year.